the numbers in mind. Try to simplify your x and y before getting the rest. Go back and study your test. And like Mr. Angry, what it's a piece of pie. X.
Here, determine the zeros or roots of each function or equation. Remember that the roots or the zeros are places where they cross the x-axis right here. All right, let's go ahead and do question number C1. F of x equals x squared plus 3x minus 5. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to go for the home run and see if factoring works. A times c is negative 5. Remember that comes from ax squared plus bx plus c, and this is my a times c. And this is my b value. So my b value is 3. And two numbers that multiply to be negative 5 are 5 and 1. But you'll notice that it doesn't matter what combination of negative 5 plus 1, they never equal to add to 3. Which means that this is not factorable. Okay, so I'm going to use the quadratic formula. What is the quadratic formula? X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4a all over 2 times a. And I'm just going to do my substitutions here. So the b value is positive 3, so we're going to put that here and here. The a value, there is none right there, so that is a 1. So I'm going to put it here and here. And I forgot something. I forgot my c value here, and that one is negative 5. Okay, let's substitute all those numbers in. X equals, okay, this negative sign has to stay there. Here's my substitution in parentheses. My b value is 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared. We say minus 4, but it's really a negative 4 times the a value, which is 1, and c value, which is negative 5, all over 2 times 1. Let's go ahead and simplify this now. So I have the opposite of positive 3, which is negative 3, plus or minus the square root. 3 squared is 3 times 3, which is 9. Okay, now watch how I do this one. I'm just going to multiply all of those in green. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20. Positive 20, okay? All over 2 times 1, which is 2. And we're almost done here. So x equals negative 3 plus or minus 9 plus 20 is 29. All divided by 2. Okay, now this problem doesn't tell us to either use decimals, or we'll keep it this as an exact answer. Let's write that, exact answer. And let's just keep that as our final answer. Now, I want to explain the plus or minus. The plus or minus just means you have two problems. You have negative 3 plus radical 29 over 2, and negative 3 minus radical 29 over 2. Okay, so you really have two solutions here. And remember, that means that the quadratic crosses in those two places. Hey guys, Mr. Ring here. Let's go over C3. Determine the zeros or roots of each function or equation. Remember, we're trying to find those blue dots. Well, look at this equation. Now, it looks like standard form here, and that's wrong. Why is that wrong? Because you have this 2 over here. Okay, so let's move that 2 over. I'm going to subtract 2. Because remember, in order to go across the equation sign, you're going to have to do the opposites. So I have 2x squared plus 6x minus 9 equals 0. Okay, once it's now set equal to 0, there in yellow, it is standard form. How is that helpful for us? Because then I can say that this is my A, this is my B, and this is my C. Okay, let's go for the home run. Let's see if we can solve this by factoring. Can we factor? Well, remember, it's A times C up here, and then your B value. So A times C is negative 18, and my B value is 6. Now, let's say you're trying to think of all the combinations. I always like to write them out. 18, 1, 9 times 2, 6 times 3. Okay, let's see if any of these will give us one of those answers. Okay, does any of those work? No, that would 18, but you know, if I add those, it won't equal 6. It won't add equal 6. Won't add equal 6. So is this factorable? The answer is no. I'm gonna have to figure out a different method to doing this. So we're going to have to use either completing the square or the quadratic formula. I'm going to choose quadratic formula here. So we're going to use x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And we're going to do these substitutions. So substitution. I'm going to use my highlighter for this so you can see it. Okay, my A value is 2. So everywhere I see an A, we're going to put in 2 here. B is 6, so everywhere I see a B, we're going to do 6. And the C value goes there, okay? Let's now write this in. X equals negative. My B value is 6 plus or minus the square root. Again, my B value is 6 squared minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is negative 9, all over 2 times the A value, which is 2. Okay. Next, we need to simplify. Let's simplify. The opposite of positive 6 is negative 6. It's not 6 times 2, it's 6 squared. So 6 times 6 gives me 36. Okay, this one I like to do in chunk. And the reason why I'm doing it in this chunk is the order of operations, right? You're essentially doing PEMDAS. So we did the exponents, and now you're essentially doing multiplication and division here. So this is negative 4 times 2, and then that's negative 8, and negative 8 times negative 9 is a positive 72. All over 2 times 2, which is 4. Whoops. Whoops. Trying to go down to my next slide here. There we go. Okay, let's keep simplifying here. X equals negative 6 plus or minus 36 plus 72 gives me 108 all over 4. Okay, let's do this problem here in red. How do I simplify the square root of 108? Okay. Some of you guys have done this thing called the factoring tree. I don't know if you remember this thing. The factoring tree, you just keep breaking them down by 2's, right? 2 times 54. And then you have 2 times 27. And then, so I got 2, the green 2, and then 27 is 3 times 9. So you have 2 times 2 times 3, and then you have 9, which is 3 times 3. Okay, so how does this work out? You remember this little index number is a 2. When you have pairs, they can come out. Watch. It's really 2 times 2, or the square root of 4. So you have 1 2 come out. And you get the 3's that get to come out as pairs. Okay, my story is there's a scary neighborhood out here, and it's so scary that you need to hold hands. So there's a pair of 2's, they can come outside the house. You see this blue 3 here has no one to hold hands with? They can't come out. Okay. All right, so I have the square root of, the only thing that's left is that blue 3. So 2 times 3 is 6. So my answer is 6 radical 3. So to summarize, the square root of 108 can be reduced to 6 radical 3, which basically kind of tells you that the best one would have been 36 times 3, and then the square root of 36 is 6. Okay, so let's go ahead and use that information. We're still simplifying here on the left side. On the big problem, x equals negative 6 plus or minus. Let's use now this one we just did. 6 radical 3 all over 4. Okay, this one usually baffles students. So what I'm going to do is factor out a 2. You can pretend that this box here is like an x. So like, think of it as an x. So you can have something like this. Negative 6 plus or minus 6x over 4. Okay? And if you take out an even, 2 times negative 3 plus or minus, remember it's like distributing to get the number above, right? This would be a 3. And then instead of having x here, I have radical 3, right? Because that would be 2 times 3 would give us that 6. All over 2 times 2. Okay, why did I do that? So I could do all of this. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So you're left with all of that, negative 3 plus or minus 3 radical 3 all over 2. What does this mean again? This means that blue box represents, I know, long problem, those blue dots, what we're trying to find. And remember, the plus or minus is really 2 solutions. You just split them up. Negative 3 plus and 1's minus. Okay? That's all it means there in the green highlighted there. So you have 2 separate problems. All right? Good job, guys. See ya. All right, let's go over C4. Determine the zeros or roots of each function. Remember there in blue, we're trying to find those blue dots on the x-axis. Here's C4. 4x squared minus x minus 1 equals 5. Okay, the common mistake for students is to think that this is the A, this is the B, and that's the C. Well, that is wrong. Why is it wrong? Because you have that 5 over there. So let's move that 5. And I'm going to line it underneath the like terms there. So I'm going to get 4x squared minus x minus 6 equals 0. Okay, now remember from standard form, we can identify the A, B's, and C's. So A is 4, B is negative 1. Why is it a negative 1? Because you can always place a 1 right there. and c equals negative 6. Okay, let's go for the home run. Let's see if this is factorable. A times c and b value. So I have negative 24 and I have negative 1. Let's list out all the factors. 24 and 1, 12 and 2, 6 and 4, and 8 and 3. Okay. Can I put any combination there and then change them to positive negative? Will that work? Well, they cannot add to 1, not add to 1, not add to 1, not add to 1. So it's prime factors. Prime factorization basically means you cannot factor it. Okay, so what does that mean? We're going to have to use the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula always works. What is a quadratic formula's purpose? Is to solve for x. Remember those blue dots up here. Let me sing a song. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Did you like that? Good. So a is 4. Another a right there. And then my b value is negative 1. And my c value. C value is right there. Okay, let's substitute that in. So what are we doing now? We are doing, I don't want in white. We are doing a substitution. X equals, I'm basically just copying everything above. Negative, okay, that negative sign has to stay out there. And anytime I'm putting a substitution or replacing it, the b value is a negative 1. You put it inside the parentheses. The square root, plus or minus the square root of my b value, which is negative 1 in red above, squared, right? I'm just copying this. My negative 4. Okay, my a value is 4. My c value is negative 6. This is all over 2 times the a value, which is 4. Okay, so we just did substitutions. Let us now simplify. This one will probably take us the longest amount. Okay, all right, so I have x equals, the opposite of negative 1 is a positive 1. Plus or minus, big square root, negative 1 squared is, negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. This right here is, remember it's PEMDAS. So I just did the exponents in parentheses. Now we're doing multiplication here, okay? So negative 4 times 4 is 16. Negative 16 times negative 6 gives me a positive 96. And then 2 times 4 is just 8. Okay, so let's go ahead and simplify now. X equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 97 over 8. Now, 97 is a prime number, which basically means that I cannot, I can't simplify that anymore. So that is our answer. Remember, let's highlight this in blue. This here, this blue box is our answer, and it represents those 2 dots, okay? It doesn't ask us to do decimals, whoops. But the big idea here is I want to say is that this is an exact answer. Let's write that. What makes something an exact answer is that means it's better than rounding or putting into decimals, okay? And remember the plus or minus, that just means that you have 2 answers. X equals 1 plus radical 97 over 8, and x equals 1 minus radical 97 over 8. So you'll notice that there's kind of like 2 answers, right? That's why that plus or minus represents two answers. Okay? See you guys.
Love math. You don't love math? What's wrong with you? I love math.
All right, let's go ahead and try C11. Determine the zeros and roots of each function or equation. Remember to find those roots or x-intercepts. We're going to try one of these 5 methods. Remember, factoring there, one circled, is the easiest one, and then the stars will always work. So let's see if we can factor this one. And anytime you're factoring, you don't want an a value that's negative. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out this -1. So I get 2x squared minus 5x plus 1. Remember, you can always check your answer by distributing. Multiply there, you get -2x squared above, positive 5x above, and -1 above. So let's go ahead and try to factor this one here in red. Remember, a is 2, b is -5, and c is 1. So a times c is 2, and the b value is -5. Can you find two numbers that multiply to be 2, and the same two numbers add to be -5? Well, there's only a combination of 2 and 1, and they will never equal to add up to 5, okay? So what does that tell us then? We can't factor. Let's just write that right quick. Hey. Can't factor. Okay, this doesn't work. There's nothing in there in yellow that we can find. All right, so let's go back to the drawing board. So number 2 method above there doesn't work. So let's go ahead and try the quadratic formula. Remember, completing the square only works best when a is 1 and the b value is even. So let's use the quadratic formula. What is the quadratic formula? Always write it down. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Let's make sure we know that here's my a value, b value, and c value. Let's use our highlighter here. So remember, my a value is -2. So every time there's an a, we're going to write -2. The b value is 5. So every time I see a b value, I'm going to write 5. And the c value is -1. So every time I see a c value, I'm going to write -1. So now let's go ahead and do the substitution. X equals, remember you have to have this negative sign on the outside, regardless of whatever the b value is, which is 5, plus or minus the square root. The b value is 5. Remember, you put your replacement in parentheses, minus 4 times -2 times c value, which is -1, all over 2 times the a value, which is -2. So we just replace those values, right? And now let's go ahead and simplify. So I have x equals the opposite of +5 is -5 plus or minus the square root of 5 squared, which is 25. This one's going to be -4 times -2, which is +8, and +8 times a -1 equals -8, all over -4. All right, let's go ahead and now simplify some more. So x equals -5 plus or minus 25 minus 8 is 17, all over -4. All right, so I like this answer. This is an exact answer here, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight this. All right, so I would be happy with this answer, but I want to show you guys how the textbook has a similar answer or different. So what I first want to show you guys is changing this to a plus or minus. So you have 1 plus and you have 1 minus. So you have x equals negative 5 plus radical 17 all over negative 4. And what you can do with the denominator of that fraction is you have now negative 5 over negative 4 plus 17 over negative 4. Negative divided by negative is a positive, and radical 17 is a positive divided by negative. It gives me a negative. So that would be one of their answers. Okay, let's go over and try this other one over here. So x equals negative 5 minus radical 17 over negative 4. Basically, this negative 4 I'm going to repeat twice. So now you have x equals negative 5 over negative 4. The negative is referring to the radical 17 divided by a negative 4. So if you simplify that, you're going to get x equals a negative divided by negative is a positive. Negative divided by negative is a positive. And you'll have something that looks like this as your answer. So blue would be acceptable. Yellow and green was what the book had, just to show you guys. Good luck.
Love math. You don't love math? What's wrong?
We're helping Meredith solve this quadratic equation, or we change it to Juan because Juan wanted to volunteer. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to use the quadratic formula ourselves, and then we can compare our work to Meredith's, and then we can find any errors that she might have, he or she have. Lily, what's the first thing we need to do? We're going to subtract 3. Let's do that. Lily, tell us what's left. So if you went steps again, set equal to 0. Set equal to 0. Good job, Lily. Alright, who's next? Brian. What's next?
You can check the, I don't know what it's called, the X, right? You get like, okay, A, B, and C, can you like play with them?
Yeah, let's do the A, B, and C. Can you tell me that?
A is X is 1.
A is 1.
And then B is negative 7.
Correct.
And then C is negative 11.
Okay, Brian, can you tell me also the quadratic formula? Dun 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 dun.
X equals negative B plus square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C over 2A.
Thank you, Brian. So we wrote, make sure it's set equal to 0. Brian helped us find the A, B, and C quadratic formula. Let's now do our substitutions. Help us with the substitutions here, Diego. So I'm going to have that minus sign, guys. You guys were talking about it, right?
Yes.
Now you said negative 7.
Plus or minus
Yep.
the square root of negative 7 squared.
Notice I'm using my parentheses.
Minus 4 times 1 over 2 times 1.
Raise your hand if you got that so far. Okay. Good job, Diego. Alejandro, let's simplify this. Remember, this one is the opposite of negative 7. And what do you get here? Positive 7. Negative 7 squared. Negative 4 times 1. Positive or negative? And negative 4 times negative 11. And Alejandro, 2 times 1. 2. Alright, Noel, simplify that.
7 plus or minus the square root of 93 over 2.
Noel, go ahead and split these for us, please.
7 plus the square root of 93 over 2. 7 minus the square root of 93 over 2.
Okay, now you could leave it like this. This is a very clean answer, but remember, how many solutions are here? 2. 2. 1, 2. Okay? Alright, let's go back now and see if we can identify Meredith's error. I'm sorry, Juan's error. Okay, with your partner, take 20 seconds, take a look here, take a look there, put your finger on it, circle it, something. Saul, do you see Juan Meredith's error? Do you see the error? What's the error? Didn't set equal to 0. Right there. Right? Because then they just picked A, B, and C on the left side, not set equal to 0. And again, the reason why that has to be 0 is because it's an x-intercept. Okay, then it says determine the solution to Meredith's quadratic equation. We already did that. And then let's just practice putting that in decimal form. Let's do that together. So if you have your calculator, your test approved calculator. Can I use that one? Pass it over. Alright, take a look at this calculator. This one does not have math type. So I want to show you guys how I'm going to calculate this one right here. And really, I should actually do these squiggly ones. You guys know what the squiggly ones are? Yeah, we're approximating, we're estimating, right? This is an exact answer. Everyone say exact? Exact. Class, why is it an exact answer? It has a radical and a fraction. This is actually more accurate than the calculator. The calculator is just estimating by decimals. It's just that we understand decimals. It's kind of like money. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Alright, so let's do that together. 93, so in this calculator I have to type in 93. And then I press the square root button. I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to add 7.
Wait, can you do that again?
That's why I record videos. I can just rewind it. So, you have 93.
Yeah.
Take the square root button.
Yeah.
And then I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to write plus 7 and then enter or equals. And then I'm going to divide my answer by 2. In class, if you round to the nearest hundredth, the answer is 8.32. Okay, this one's going to be a little bit tricky to do with a calculator, so I'm going to do mathematically, is it okay if I do the opposite of square root of 93 plus 7 over 2? They're the same thing, right? 7 is positive. Square root of 93 is negative. So let's do that together. So the calculator, you're going to have to do a little bit of work. I'm going to have to take 93 square root. Then I'm going to change the positive negative. So now it pops up as negative. Plus 7. Enter, or equals. And then I'm going to divide my answer by 2. And you get x is approximately, how would you round to the nearest hundredth?
Negative 1.32.
Negative 1.32. Now let's just say your calculator, like you're not getting the same answer and you have math type. It is okay if you just kind of like go to your calculator, type in 93 and press the square root button, and then you round 9.64. And then you can just do 7 minus 9.64, whatever your answer is, and then divide it by 2. Does that make sense? You can do it by parts, or you can kind of do it all together. Questions on calculator or how to do the problem?
Can you do a distance inside?
I will show you when I come around. We did that yesterday. No? Yes? No? Did I show you guys yesterday? With a different calculator? With yours, right? The green one.
But there's multiple.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. We got to use the critical thinking.
I love math. You don't love math? What's wrong with you? I love
Alright,
math.
so let's just say we've done this problem and we're not sure if we can solve this by factoring square root or cutting the square. We can just use the quadratic formula. So let's write down some steps and apply that to this example. The first thing I want to do is I want to identify the A, B, and C. Class, is this the A value?
No.
Well, I need to get it in standard form. How do I do that? I most likely want an A value to be positive, so I'll add 2x squared to both sides. This leaves me with 2x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals 0. And then from here, we can write the standard form of quadratics below it. Ax squared plus bx plus c. And then we can say, class, your A value is?
2.
2. Your B value?
3.
And your C value?
-5.
Your A, B's, and C's will always be delete. Your A, B, and C values will always be numbers. You will never have an x or an x squared in here. Okay? So we've just identified the A, B, and C. The second thing we need to do is write down the quadratic formula. Isaac, go ahead and tell us the quadratic formula.
Plus or minus.
Remember, the quadratic formula is solving for the variable x for us. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a substitution. Everyone say substitution.
Substitution.
Every b value, I'm going to be putting in A3. Every A value we'll be putting in 2. And every, what am I missing? C value will be -5. Remember, when you're doing your substitutions or evaluating, you're always using parentheses. Class, your B value?
3.
Plus or minus radical. What goes there?
3.
Minus 4
2. -5.
You should always do this. Identify the parts. Always write down the formula. Always do a substitution. And last, we do what? We're going to simplify or solve. Opposite of 3 is -3. Plus or minus 3 squared. Pay attention. This is usually the first common mistake for students. I'm going to use my finger. Use your finger. I'm going to do -4 times A times C. So -4 times 2 is what? And -A times -5 is positive 40 plus 40. Just how I use my finger, and just whatever math operation you have, just write that number, okay? Over 4. X equals -3 plus or minus 9 plus 40 is X equals -3 plus or minus 7 over 4. This means here we have two solutions. Let me write it out for you so you can see it. -3 plus 7 over 4 and -3 minus 7 over 4. There I'm splitting the plus or minus at the very end. Class, -3 plus 7 and 4 over 4 is -3 minus 7. -10 over 4 is -5 over 2. Huh. Those two solutions probably tell me that it would have been really easy to use factoring in this problem. It would have worked. But quadratic formula still works. In summary, put in standard form to get your A, B, and C. Write down the quadratic formula, substitute, and then simplify it.